Hi, I'm Gus, and I'm part of Right Bumper, and we try and unlock notoriously difficult achievements. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you on my journey of how I unlocked Heart of the Core achievement in Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares is a puzzle platformer horror side-scroller thing made by Tarsier Studios and was released in 2017. It's a cute game and it's got a very dark twist, but it was met with mostly positive reviews when it came out. The achievement in question is Heart of the Core. It's worth 200 gamer score, and it's for beating the game in under an hour without dying. While Little Nightmares is hardly a Dark Souls game, it takes you longer than an hour to beat, with your first playthrough probably being like 2 or 3 hours. And there are a lot of things that can kill you. At the time of making this video, less than 1,500 people have unlocked this achievement on the Xbox. Steam achievements and PlayStation trophies don't count. Alright, so why is this achievement so hard? Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is, we're not trying to set the world record. We only need a handful of time skips to get us under the hour mark. The bad news is, it's pretty easy to die in this game. There's no combat, there's no second chances. If you die, you gotta wipe the tears from your face and start a new game. I had never played Little Nightmares before this, so I was starting at square one. It's not a terribly complicated game. You can move, run, crouch, grab things, kind of, and you have a lighter to help you see in the dark. It's got 5 levels, and the final level is mostly just a boss fight. First thing I did was unlock all the other achievements, which wasn't that hard. Most of the other achievements were simple and related to beating specific chapters or finding all the gnomes. Also, on a side note, I could make a whole nother video about the lore of these little gnome guys, but if you haven't played the DLC for Little Nightmares, I highly recommend it. Now, with all the other achievements out of the way, we can get onto the hard part. I am not a speedrunner. I have bad knees, poor eyesight, and a weird mole thing on my left nipple. But I find that speedrunners have the best strats for beating the game, and there is a time element in this, so it's a good place to start. Right now, the speedrun record is 32 minutes and 57 seconds, well below the 1 hour mark. But after watching some speedruns, I realized that a mouse and keyboard make life a lot easier for certain sections, and I'm a filthy casual, I'm not giving up my controller. I found some skips that were low risk and moderate reward. You see, with this achievement, time is a factor, but not dying is just as important. Speedrun tactics are often difficult, unless you're willing to grind a section of the game over and over again, learning how to save 7 seconds swinging from a sausage only to get one-shotted by a fat guy, then you're gonna have to find the perfect balance between speed and not dying. Here's just a real quick pro tip for you. If you think you're about to die, you can pause the game and reload the checkpoint, and this won't void the achievement. Sometimes the game does take that option away from you, like if you get grabbed by an enemy and you hit pause, like reload checkpoint won't even be there. And this also won't stop or reset the timer, but people have still gotten this achievement by reloading the checkpoint just before dying. Chapter 1 is probably the hardest in my opinion. I'm not even sure why. I died here a lot.
Why the fuck you dying? Why you always dying? Oh my god. Stop fucking dying.
There are very few enemies to speak of, and the first few rooms serve as a tutorial for the game. But it is the longest, and most of what can kill you will do so instantly. You start off in a series of vents, you drag a few things around to help you reach high places, you avoid some leeches that you will never see in the game again, you have to avoid a light that will kill you if it sees you, that is never in the game again. These obstacles aren't even necessarily difficult, and I would argue that later levels have way more challenging hurdles, but for whatever reason, this level was my kryptonite. Chapter 2 is by no means a cakewalk, and it's probably got the most difficult boss in it. Here, we are introduced to the janitor. While he can't see you, he will hear, smell, taste, sense, and divine your location whenever he feels like it. You can crouch around him and you're usually safe, so a lot of this level is just crouch walking behind him until you're far enough away to start running. He also has these long, stretchy arms, so it's kinda hard to tell when you're out of his range, and his hands have a very strange hitbox, so it can lead to some really goofy interactions like this. Right before the final encounter, if you stand right here, and if you jump away at the last second before he grabs you, it gives you a ton of time to make it to the final room and prepare it, which will cut the boss fight in half. Chapter 3 is probably my favorite level. This is the kitchen, and if you thought enslaving children was dark, just wait until you see what's on the menu. Here we have to avoid these chefs. While there aren't anything special, there are a few times where they will see you and you have to run away from them, so you gotta go fast. Every room has a chef in it, and some have multiple chefs in them. But there's a huge skip in this chapter that's a must. So when you come to this final room, you have to climb up this shelf and jump across these ledges into the room where the meat hooks are disappearing. And at the last possible second, jump up and grab the meat hook right before it hits the wall. And it takes you to the end of the level. Huge skip. Chapter 4 is pretty simple. You spend the level navigating the guests. While they're not the most agile of enemies, they make up for it in numbers and appetite. There are actually a lot of huge skips in this level that are surprisingly easy. In fact, you can skip the entire bathroom sequence just by ducking under the chef when he leaves the elevator. These are probably the most cinematic of the encounters, and this level will have you questioning who this little girl you're playing as really is. Chapter 5, like I said before, is mostly just a boss fight. You run from the lady for a bit, and then you find a mirror, which we use to fight her. She behaves the same way every time you do this fight, so if you know the pattern, this fight is really just a formality. The first 2 times, she always pops up behind you. So right there, boom. After that, she's going to spawn from the bottom left, the bottom right, directly left, and finally from the top left. That's it! That's it! That's it! And that's it. The in-game timer stops when the mirror breaks. And after a very long and messy walk down a hallway and up the world's longest flight of stairs, you will be met with the most beautiful sound you've ever heard.
We fucking did it! Oh! Can you believe we did it? Our first try, no look. I've never practiced that.
Alright, so what did we learn? Practice makes perfect. At its core, this achievement is about speedrunning, and speedrunning is about repetition. Stuck on a part? Think there's a ledge you can grab if you can just figure out the right timing and collision? Well, channel your inner Kardashian and throw yourself at that sausage for hours until you make something work. This took me many attempts over many weeks, and I often made the mistake of trying to tackle the entire game in one sitting instead of picking a part I was having trouble with and focusing on it. If you're trying to get hard to the core, it really is just a numbers game. No one gets it their first try, and you're gonna have to put in a few hours of work. Granted, I'm bad at most things, but if I can be hard to the core, so can you.